PlayStation Portable, or the PSP, was all that, at least in the mid phases of the handheld console scene. It had hundreds of games to straight up curb stomp your boredom on the fly, music so you can straight up dance like Groot on the fly, and it had a video player so I can rewatch that one sex scene from Iron Man that got me into a lot of trouble. The PSP was released worldwide in 2005. Happy 20 years, buddy. It was birthed competing with the Nintendo DS, which is also awesome as fuck, and the fucking Nokia N-Cage, which sucked ass. But the reason why PSP stood out, to me at least, than most handheld consoles, because it was an evolution of them. Where most handheld consoles back then were just pixels to then colored pixels to then simulated 3D pixels, the PSP innovated by not only doing advanced graphics that you'd see in popular games, but also had multimedia features all through the help of Sony's UMD. It also allowed for internet browsing, which definitely opened some portals for people from downloading wallpapers of 17 again to downloading Jenna Hayes' best moments with director's commentary.
First, I'm going to eat you out. I'll be too rough, you'll gag, cause I'm the opposite of a
But PSP certainly had some bangers. You could play Spider-Man 2 before Spider-Man 2. You could be Sonny Hayes in Ridge Racer. You can be invisible in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Hell, you can even listen to Hall & Oates in Vice City Stories whilst trying to break into a military base. My favorite PSP game was God of War Chain of Olympus. It was technically the first God of War game I ever played, before the one that felt like The Last of Us but with a cool axe. I just think Chain of Olympus certainly entertained me as a kid, with its level design, its action, its level up, its story and violence, and the random ass candle segments that I was too young to play but understood enough to have that neuron activation. But by far the most impressive PSP game to me was Prince of Persia Revelations, which in itself was a PSP port of Prince of Persia Warrior Within. And although it did have performance issues, and Warrior Within being just a generally better playing game, I still had a good time with Revelations. And I played both games, and they both certainly have a good amount of titties you have to fight through. I kind of want to take a moment to talk about the PSP camera. Although I never owned one, but as someone who likes photography, I think this is really cool that Sony was doing this. And just seeing people use it now, just capturing the early 2000s aesthetic, is just really cool. And I don't know, makes me want to just get a PSP and a camera and just take some really grimy ass cursed photos. The PSP was certainly a banger, as it was very ambitious as well as innovative, because it had all of the useful features without the device itself being the size of a fucking brick, which sort of raised the bar on what Sony would do with the PSP 2. Electric Boogaloo. What the fuck am I looking at? The PS Vita was a step forward, but also 2 steps backwards and a slip down the fucking stairs. Like, yeah, it was a technical step up with better performance, but the PS Vita was more designed for apps than games, in my non-professional opinion. The PSN sucked ass, and so did the over-reliance of PSS. The fucking UI was trying too hard with its circles, and the only thing ended up working in the end was the web browser, which people used it for, you guessed it, pirating games. And Tory Black's funny moments featuring a commentary from Eminem, which sort of reminds me of that one story I read about Eminem. I'm going off track here, but he discovered in 2009 that there is porn on the internet, which apparently happened because he was flexing to an interviewer of like DVDs of just porn he had, and then he got told about the wonders of the internet, and then a year later from that, Sasha Grey was in his music video. So it's kind of funny to me, at least. Thank you, Fact Fiend. Eminem would have loved the PS Vita or the PSP, to be honest. He'd either be joking it or playing 50 Cent Bulletproof, the G-Unit edition. But yeah, PS Vita kind of sucked ass, as it was mainly just a smartphone that happened to play games. I reckon you'd have a better time playing with the fucking Sony Xperia or whatever that was. It had an interesting feature where the back of it was touch sensitive for no reason, but it was just heavy promotion of remote play, which was pitched as, you can play PS4 games on this. But the whole idea of remote play is that it's streamed, so it's just, it just doesn't hit. And the games on there were just not too great. Like, you did have Minecraft and Uncharted, but most of the games on there were either RPGs or visual novels, which my give a fuckness was at a constant low to it. I remember when I was gifted the PS Vita, it was fun for like the first day, but then it just sort of collected dust as I was primarily just playing my PS3 or the PSP Go. But also the PS Vita was competing with the 3DS and lost, and all Nintendo 3DS did was just take the DS, upgrade it, and make it 3D, which is what most films was doing back in 2012, because the only reason I liked Battleship was because it was in 3D. And I almost forgot about when PlayStation tried to reutilize the Vita with the PlayStation TV. Propelling off the success of Apple TV and Chromecast, it was just a Vita, but you plugged it into your LG TV, just in case if you want to play Hatsune Miku Project Diva. But with a list of incompatible games, and just the thing itself being a general useless chunk of coal, it was discontinued a year after its release. However, awesome people who are referred to as the community figured a way to hack the PSTV to not only make games compatible to play, but also allowed for Netflix. So, Battleship tonight, fellas? Unfortunately, it's a 2D. Yeah, stop the hate. I also sort of glossed over Homebrew, which is produced software for a gaming console that are made to be user programmable by hobbyists. It's typically used for hacks, cheats, and exploits, but in some cases, game development. It's a very cool coin of people trying to get the most of their hardware and even pushing it to its limit, all for fun and optimization. But with many coins, there's a flip side to it with piracy, viruses, getting hunted down by the ice, which I made a video about if you wanna, you know. But where PSP Homebrew allowed people to play ROM files of Game Boys and N64, the PS Vita Homebrew allowed for a PSP emulator, so you went from playing some PSP games on the Vita to all of them. Moral of the story, Homebrew is cool, only if it's not a goddamn Trojan horse. Back to you, dumbass. But after PS Vita, Sony kinda gave up entirely on the handheld scene. Like, Nintendo made the Switch, which entirely changed everything, as it was both handheld console that allowed for actual gaming and couch multiplayer games. So you can play Mario Kart with your friends and have the opportunity to beat the shit out of them in the same room. But Sony did try with their PlayStation Portal, which was just a remote play accessory, but some guy was able to hack it and run a PSP emulator on it, so it might as well just be the PSP 2. I don't know, get Eminem on it. The PSP obviously had an impact on the handheld console scene. I truly believe if it wasn't for the likes of the DS or 3DS or the PSP, we wouldn't have the Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, Xbox ROG Ally, or even if it's a bit of a stretch, the iPhone. But it wasn't necessarily the impressive hardware and the ambitious features that made the PSP stick out to me. It was the memories I had with it. You know how many fucking moments in my life that would have just been me sitting in boredom if it wasn't for the PSP? Games nowadays will always be advancing for the most realistic graphics and the most smallest console or the biggest file size games. But the PSP taught me a huge lesson, which is play it because you love it. And that is what the wonders of just games in general should be striving for. And that's where I leave you. Let me know what your favorite games or consoles. But yeah, thanks for watching this mind vomit. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm probably now gonna go into hibernation, or I don't know, probably watch 17 again on my PSP, or Bouncy Virtual Lap Dancers Volume 1. Oh, you know, fuck it. I'm gonna watch Dreamer on my PSP because I actually had a UMD for that, and I wish I was joking, but for some reason 7-year-old me remembers having the disc for it. I don't remember the film though, because I thought it was a horse game with Kurt Russell for some reason, but so I guess I just never properly watched it. But anyway, I've been me, you've been you. Have a good night.
PlayStation Portable.